Yeah. I know that show.
Okay.
I still haven't seen it, but I know which one you're talking about now.
Well,
James
So this
Spader's
hangs-
great.
Okay, we're
Going on
live.
to the blacklist, though.
okay. The blacklist. There might be blacklist lovers here, but I'm not one of them. I think it's a bit weak.
Don't.
I mean-
I don't even know what it is.
Oh,
It's one of
okay.
those shows.
Blacklist lovers. Just remember, I didn't say it.
How can
It's
I
one of
possibly
those
keep up with
shows.
everything? I mean,
It's-
I watch
well,
television
clearly,
in
obviously, you
every
can.
free moment of my life.
It's a show that my father-in-law loves.
I'm still very stuck on Barry. That is my favorite show right now.
Did you watch this week's?
I did.
What's
Ow, my goodness.
Yeah.
stuck on Barry?
It's getting dark.
Oh, Barry is the name of the show.
Yeah.
Oh.
Barry is a
Barry
show
is-
upon
Bill
which
haters.
we are stuck.
Yes.
So it's Barry as in BARRY.
Why?
Correct.
Yeah. It's a really good show, but it's dark.
HBO. Oh, dark. Okay, maybe I don't need that.
It's not super dark. It's dark, but it's not like
It's funny. That's the thing.
it's not as dark as dark can be. It's not like Handmaid's Tale dark.
No, nothing is.
Wow. Okay.
Nothing
Yeah.
is.
Actually, I enjoyed
but
that
it's
the premise is
taking a-
dark.
It's taking a turn where I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to deal with some
Okay.
things.
Bill Hader
don't-
plays an assassin who wants to get out of the business and become an actor.
Right.
Interesting.
So there is a lot of comedy involved, but it's also like the subject matter is not lighthearted at all.
I might watch it since I have HBO Nordic here.
It's really good.
fine.
It's really good.
Okay, are we ready to
Okay.
go?
I am.
Let's do it then. Here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by you and hats. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Google News for Tuesday, May 8th, 2018 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And with some other news to contribute from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
And from Finland, I'm Patrick. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired today.
There's a lot of news out there to wade through. It'll tire a man out, plus the time difference between us.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we have Roger Chang to bring us all together.
Hello, I'm here to bring people together.
He's
Yes.
like an infinity gauntlet of tech news. No, that doesn't work
Is-
either.
I was
really
thinking
tired.
more like a large pizza pie where everyone sits around the
Oh,
table.
that's much better.
Yeah, the soul
With the lazy
slice,
Susan.
the time
Just
slice.
kinda, yeah.
The mushroom, but no anchovy slice.
Most of the show is going to be about Google I/O, not pizza. But let's start with a few tech things you should know.
Google's research department, which includes computer vision, healthcare, machine learning, among other things, is rebranding under the name Google AI, which will include all of research.google.com channels and affiliated social links like Twitter and Google Plus channels.
While they thought everybody was looking at Microsoft Build and Google I/O, Facebook just shook up the house. Chris Cox will now run a new division in Facebook called Family of Apps. That'll include Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger. David Marcus, who was running Messenger, will now run a new team dedicated to the blockchain, which alongside AR, VR, and AI will be part of a new division called New Platforms and Infra under CTO Mike Schroepfer. And Vice President of Growth Javier Olivan will now oversee a third division called Central Product Services, which includes shared features like ads and security. And to top it all off, remember Jan Koum left WhatsApp? Well, they've got a new boss. Chris Daniels takes over as VP of WhatsApp. Daniels most recently was running Facebook's internet.org efforts. They're the folks that offer free basics by Facebook.
Hey, couldn't they have called it New Platforms and Infrastructure? Like, do they have to try and sound cool by
Listen,
calling it
I'm just
infra?
copying and pasting from Recode with that name. I don't know that that's the official name.
It could
So
be infrared.
Before we start throwing stuff at them, let's just be careful.
That's Microsoft announced better terms for Windows developers selling apps in its Microsoft Store. reducing its share of the revenue it collects from third-party Windows apps that aren't games. The new terms give developers 95% of sales and 85% if Microsoft helps surface the app through spotlights or as part of a collection. For games, Microsoft still collects 30% of revenue for apps on a non-subscriber basis and 15% of subscription-based game apps. No word exactly when these changes will go live. Basically, Microsoft saying, please use our App Store, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's undercutting both the Google Play and the Apple's App Store, which both take 30% of apps across the board. So it'll be interesting to see if this encourages more development. Square is launching Square for Restaurants, a software platform for restaurant operations that handles booking tables and managing that after-meal check. Square acquired on-demand food delivery business Caviar back in 2014 for a reported $90 million. Now it's coming to light a little bit why that acquisition was made. It's part of the new restaurant system. Square says its software has the ability to update menus and floor layouts remotely, performance tracking, tip splitting, fraud protection as well. Square for Restaurants is the company's third point of sale offering after launching Square for Retail and Square for Appointments for service-based businesses.
Twitter for Android's application package shows code for encrypted direct messages, DMs. A secret conversation option could help Twitter better complete encrypted communication or compete with encrypted and communication apps like Signal, Telegram, WhatsApp. APKs often contain code for unlaunched features that companies are testing before the features go live. If they go live, there's no guarantee. 18 months ago, whistleblower Edward Snowden asked Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey for encrypted DM. And Dorsey at the time said that's reasonable and something we'll think about. So maybe they did it.
The real question is, when will Twitter include a stories functionality? That's what I want to know.
That's not the real question.
It might be.
It's a different question.
Okay, fine.
It's additional question.
Your
semantics
statements. Android appears to now be recognizing Amazon's voice assistant as a possible Google Assistant substitute for the same way it does Microsoft's Cortana. So you can set Alexa to be your default Assist app instead of Google Assistant. You'll need Amazon's Alexa app, then make the switch in the Settings, Apps, Default Apps, Assist, and Voice Input setting. After a long press on your home button, your new Amazon default assistant will fire up, just like Assistant would. Yeah.
This is a very, very, very good move, in my opinion, on Google's part. Hey, folks, don't forget you can get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes by subscribing to Daily Tech Headlines, available on the Amazon Echo, the Google Home, and the Anchor app, or at dailytechheadlines.com. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Google I/O. We're going to go through the groups of announcements they had today. First thing I want to give acknowledgement to is accessibility. Google adding Morse code to Gboard for accessibility. It comes to Gboard on iOS and Android now. Granted, they could do more, but it's nice to see that Google and Microsoft both continued this trend of treating accessibility seriously in their keynotes.
They have an image to make up for the big tech companies.
Yeah, and if people are like, wait a minute, Morse code? How does that accessible? The example they used was a couple who are developers, one of which can't speak, and she has limited mobility, so she's able to just tap left or right to create dots and dashes, which makes it easier for her to type out things that are then spoken by text-to-speech.
That's amazing. I love it. So cool.
In the artificial intelligence realm, Google Photos will start suggesting fixes to photos. Like it'll say, oh, did you want to rotate that? Looks like it's on its side. Or, it's a little bright. We can dim that down for you, or vice versa. Can also recognize people in photos and offer to share the photos with those people. There's a colorize option, so you can make your black and white or sepia tone photos color using a little AI. Google Photos Scan can fix photos of documents by zooming in and cropping them, and also turn them into PDFs if you want. Google also announced Tensor Processor Unit 3, which is, of course, optimized for Google TensorFlow. And Gmail's getting Smart Compose, which pops up suggestions to complete the sentence you're writing. You just press Tab if you want to accept the suggestion. That's going to roll out to all users this month.
Sounds scary.
Well, it's not
Make
scary.
sure
You just
you-
don't press
Why?
tab if you don't want it to
Oh,
say
but
that.
make sure you read the autocomplete,
Oh, right, yes.
I love the idea. When I first read about like black and white photos going to color, what in the world? Like, aren't we all making our colors photos black and white, for artistic purposes?
Right.
However,
If you
if you're
regret that
scanning old photos or otherwise, want to go the other way, that's pretty cool.
It's a little bit of a specific use, but when you do have a use for it, it's really nice. It's really impressive how the scope of suggestions that AIs can create is getting wider and wider. I mean, if we just take the example of Gmail, we've had suggestions for words for a long time, especially on mobile phones, keyboards, and now it's actually suggesting entire bits of sentences, and we'll have to wait and see how relevant they are, but it's so contextually complex that it's even more impressive than words, obviously. It's just, it keeps chugging along, and however worried we might be about where this is going, it doesn't seem like it's going to stop anytime soon. So
It probably says a lot about me that the PDF thing was probably the thing I was most excited about. Let's talk about Google Assistant, which of course incorporates a lot of this AI. Google Assistant will now be able to answer follow-up questions without you needing to say the trigger phrase over and over. Google calls that continued conversation. Assistant will also be able to handle multiple requests in one sentence. For instance, I could say, what was the Cardinals score last night and how many RBIs did Marcell Ozuna have? And Assistant would be able to parse that and say, oh, the Cardinals won 3-2 and Ozuna had 3 RBIs or whatever. The big one, though, that everyone's talking about is Google Duplex, which brings together text-to-speech and deep learning. Google showed off using the Assistant to make calls to real locations that didn't know it was a bot. They did one with a salon and one with a restaurant, where Assistant understood the context, had verbal pauses like ums and ahs, and was able to book appointments and reservations. Google will use this to phone businesses to get holiday hours and update the listings automatically starting this summer. This was definitely something where they said it's not ready for everybody to use yet. It doesn't work all the time, but we just kind of wanted to show it off, and it was pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive. It was unbelievable. Like, literally, I cannot believe that it actually works the way they're presenting it. And they were pretty straightforward in saying, it doesn't always work like this. And they even have a few examples. They just published an article detailing the whole thing, and they have examples where it doesn't work. But even if it works half as well as they're advertising it, I'm telling you, I cannot believe it works this well. You have to go and listen to one of those conversations to check out how impressive it is. I trust Google enough that I think they are at least close to that representation. But if I didn't know how good they are, I would, if you listen to the conversation, no one in the world would assume that this was not a human being speaking.
It's not readily apparent, incredible. Especially because it would talk over the person on the phone and say, oh, I gotcha. And things like that. Like it was very natural. Now, Pichai admitted, he's like, not every one of the tests that we've done has been as smooth as the ones you're hearing now. And the one with the restaurant was not smooth on the side of the restaurant. The restaurant kept misunderstanding what it was saying. And it had to adapt to that and understand that there was a misunderstanding and then try to correct the misunderstanding, which was impressive. So I doubt that it works that well all the time. We saw the two really impressive versions of this, which is why it's hard to believe.
I think it's expected that it wouldn't work that well all the time. But honestly, the fact that it might work that well some of the time even is already impressive. It's already kind of unbelievable that it would be able to achieve this, even a portion of the attempts that it does.
Here's a really dumb question. So, in real life, let's say I'm calling my hair salon and I want an appointment, right? And so I'm essentially giving them the reverse phone tree where, things get to a point without me having to do anything, without them having to actually talk to me. What is the benefit from someone being confused to the point where they think that Google Duplex is really a person?
Because you don't have to do it yourself. You just say, "Hey Google,
but
book
if
me
they
an
knew what
appointment."
I was doing, what does it matter that I'm using Google Duplex? Why does it have to mimic a person to the point where they wouldn't be able to discern the difference?
Oh, because they don't know that it's a bot, and if it introduced itself by saying, "Hello, I am a bot, and I am going to make an appointment for my master," they would pick. They would hang up immediately.
I think the point is not to fool them. The point is to be able to handle whatever the person on the other line end says
in a way that would make a
And
human
so-
comfortable.
Well, it's not
Yeah.
even. Yeah, it's just like
No, I
the
think it plays
result
a lot.
of being able to understand the other person causes them to think they're talking to a human. But the point isn't to fool them. The point is let's make sure we are able to handle this conversation.
Well, yes and no. I do think the point is also to fool them a little bit, because any business that would have a system in place to handle automated conversations or reservation systems would not need this. It's kind of like designing a robot to use a door and a handle. It's using something that was designed for humans, so it's kind of mimicking the human so that it doesn't have to, the environment doesn't have to be designed for it. I think here it's the same thing. Google creates a system that to adapt to human interaction, so that on the side of the business they don't have to do anything. They're just receiving a phone call.
Right.
All right. A few more Google Assistant news pieces. There's a setting called Pretty Please launching later this year that teaches children to use polite language. For instance, when children say please, Assistant responds with positive reinforcement. Also will not work if they don't say the magic word. Google's adding 6 new voice variants to Google Assistant, built on a system called WaveNet to make it more natural sounding. And later this year, John Legend's voice will be available.
Oh, I've been waiting for that.
Right.
Wow.
Which means that all the calls to salons and restaurants will be made by John Legend in the future. And Google demonstrated Lenovo smart displays with Google Assistant, and those devices are coming in July.
So how do you guys feel about the idea that Google's like, well, let's make kids more polite by using this very specific sociological way of doing so? I have to say,
it's an option. It's not it's not forcing them. It's for parents to be like, yeah, we want to teach the kids to be polite.
Yeah, it would be nice if you could customize that.
Yeah, it's okay. The thing that impressed me a little bit more was the John Legend thing. I wonder how much they paid him to do that. And how do they have restrictions on how they can use his voice? Like, it's everyone. You're going to see people have a Google Assistant say silly and offensive things with John Legend's voice.
No, the key was Legend's voice will be used in certain contexts.
Right.
That is the key takeaway phrase. Google News is getting a redesign. It'll aim to help you keep up, understand, and support the sources. Google News will use reinforcement learning, an AI training technique, to better understand your behaviors and give you 5 top stories right at the top when you open the app. New tabs will include a For You section, a headline section, a favorites section, and the newsstand will move into Google News. That'll contain local news and YouTube videos, not the newsstand, but the whole thing. A feature called Newscasts will give you an automatically generated preview of a story from multiple sources. Another feature called Full Coverage will organize stories into a viewable timeline. And Subscribe with Google will give you access across platforms of more than 60 publishers, so you don't have to log in again if you're on the web or iOS or Android. All that comes to Android, iOS, and the web in 127 countries now, and everybody should have it by next week.
Well, as somebody who uses Google News religiously, particularly for daily tech headlines, I welcome these advancements. Google News is already an invaluable tool for me, so anything that makes it more robust, I'm into it.
I hate them.
You hate them?
I use Google News the way it works right now. I don't want them messing with the way it's presented. I'm going to have to come up with a new way of doing things.
Yeah. Well,
old man Tom is
a cloud. I know.
Newscasts are essentially stories adapted to this format. It was very reminiscent of the stories format again. But I'm very curious to hear what the deal is between the Google account linked to the publishers and who gets the information. Do the publishers get the information about their subscribers? Because that was the sticking point, that the issue that was happening between Apple and the publishers, and why they didn't want to use Apple's.
The answer is yes, they do, because Google's a little looser about that stuff, and I don't think they would have signed on otherwise.
Possibly.
But we don't know that for sure. Let's talk about Android Pumpernickel, which is not the name of Android P. They didn't announce that, but they did announce adaptive battery using some deep learning, more AI, to figure out which apps you'll likely use and then manage the battery life appropriately to update only those apps. Adaptive brightness, similarly for the brightness on your screen. App actions will predict the next action in an app you're likely to take and present that to you, making it easier for you to get on to the next task. Something called slices will let apps put their buttons elsewhere in the UI. The first example will be search. So if you search for Lyft, it will show you like two slices, like, oh, here are the current prices. Here's how to book a ride. An early developer program for actions and slices will open next month. And ML Kit was introduced. ML Kit will let developers work with Google's cloud or directly on the device to add machine learning. It is also cross-platform, so it runs on iOS and Android.
I think slices were really interesting in that whole description. I don't think it's just it's buttons. It's basically a slice of the entire app that they can outsource to. Yeah, so it's a way of getting a portion of the app outside of the app itself, so it can be reused in the whole system. It also means that Google can create UIs that don't require you to go to the app, so you stay within Google's, I guess, context. It's an interesting concept.
Android will add a dashboard that shows you how much you use your phone and prompt you to take a break. Notifications can be rolled up into a daily digest. YouTube will roll out that option this week. There's a Kids Are Awesome feature to help you manage your kids' screen time. All of these tools are launching with the company's digital well-being site later on Tuesday, which is the day we're recording this show. There's also a bunch of other digital well-being features. Android P will give you hard app controls to manage your time on your phone, like setting time limits. So an app will get grayed out when it hits the limit to remind you shouldn't be using that. There's a feature called Shush that can have your phone go into Do Not Disturb when you flip it over on a table, so it won't even vibrate. Do Not Disturb will also now mute visual disturbances like notifications. Wind down mode will set the phone to grayscale at a certain time of night when you're supposed to be asleep to kind of help you put the phone down before you go to bed. And coming this fall, starting with the Pixel, Android P beta coming to Pixel Plus, and 7 devices right now. So you can get it now for the Pixel, Nokia, Vivo, OnePlus, Sony, Xiaomi, Essential, and Oppo phones.
You know, as somebody who goes into airplane mode, of course, this is on iOS because that's what I have regularly, but still that's sort of like an all or nothing thing. The idea to be like, I need to not be disturbed in certain scenarios in this certain way, or there are certain apps where I need to limit my time. You know, I'm on Instagram too much during the day or what have you. I love the idea of being able to get more granular with this.
Yeah. Google Maps had a bunch of announcements too. Google Maps getting integration with Google Assistant, so you can ask it to do things like share your ETA with someone by text message or control the music while you're driving. You don't have to touch the device. Google now able to add new addresses to businesses and other locations directly to the map using AI and satellite imagery. So it can just look and say, oh, that's a burger joint. Let's add that. New feature called For You. Yes, they also use that phrasing in Google News. Will feature recommendations on Google Maps, trending listings, other new stuff to help you discover new places in your neighborhood. Google Maps will have a new score called Your Match to find you places you might like based on your preferences. Shortlist is a feature that lets friends vote on options. So if you're like, where should we eat? You can all use Google Maps to coordinate. That's coming to iOS and Android versions of Google Maps this summer. And soon you can get updates from small businesses and book appointments and make orders from within Google Maps. So making maps more than about just navigation.
A little bit more of like a Foursquare Swarm integration into Google Maps if you're already in there.
Is this something you guys see yourself using? Because I definitely do. This is stuff where I've been using Google Maps kind of in a workaround for and wish it could do this kind of things. Not so much the group planning part, but the understand what I'm looking for. Let me know when there's new stuff around that I might be interested in.
Yeah, it's again suggestions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I like that. I'm also very impressed by its ability to read into photos and satellite imagery to populate its database. That is really impressive. Again.
Google will now combine AI with Street View on Google Maps, so labels, directions, and locations will show up on the screen. If you need walking directions, you can just hold it up and it'll show you the scene you're looking at and say, oh, you'll want to turn right up there. Also, Google Lens is going to use image and object recognition to identify stuff in your photos, things like landmarks or food. Starting next week, Google Lens will be integrated into the camera app of all Google Pixel devices, as well as the LG G7 and a few other Android phones. Lens can also recognize words in a picture to allow copy and paste from the real world.
What?
Point your camera to sign, like, oh, I want to send the name of that place to my friend, copy it out of Lens in the photo into your text message. If you show it a menu item, you can say, what is that? And it'll show you a picture of the word that is on the menu. There's also something called Style Match that'll make suggestions for things that match the style of something you see in the camera, like furniture or clothing. And you don't even have to be taking a photo of it to do that. You can just do it live in the camera. In fact, real-time results is coming to more situations over time, they say.
I feel like I should be using Google Lens more. All of the features seem awesome. Maybe it's because I'm not using Android as my phone, so maybe that's why I'm not using it. But it seems like things that would make my life easier. Not sure why I'm not using it more.
I remember in 1999 wanting to take a headline out of the Screensavers website and show it to my boss and wishing, I wish I could just take it off the screen and carry it over to her. And this is almost that.
Yeah, well, it kind of would be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could send them a picture, a photo of the thing.
Sure. But like, I just wanted to grab it with my hands. Not they're quite there. All right. Finally, Waymo, for some reason, got up on stage. They're not Google. They're a separate company owned by Google's parent company, Alphabet. So I don't know what they were doing at Google I/O, other than the fact they used to be part of Google. Waymo is launching in Phoenix with self-driving car service later this year. In other words, no driver. This will be service available later this year in Phoenix. Waymo intends to partner with multiple car companies. They mentioned that. CEO John Krafchick said that deep learning research from Google Brain has reduced error rates for detecting pedestrians by 100 times. A very important thing for Waymo to emphasize in light of what Uber seems to have discovered regarding detection of pedestrians and the fatal crash that they suffered. Waymo said it has logged 6 million miles and also runs a constant simulation with 25,000 cars in it to prepare machine learning for new situations. For instance, weather driving. Simulations have allowed them to learn how to see through weather-related sensor noise like snow. So bad weather driving has been one thing that has been more difficult for self-driving cars to learn how to navigate through, and they're making some progress there.
So just to be clear, the service they're launching in Phoenix is a citywide autonomous cab service, which you can call with an app, correct?
Yeah, I don't know how citywide it is. It may be limited to an area.
It's on public
Phoenix,
streets.
It is on public
streets, not in a private park.
Correct.
And you can use an app to call for a cab, and it's basically autonomous Uber in Phoenix.
Later this year.
That is something that we did not expect to see happening so soon. And that could, if it works, now, of course, Phoenix is probably an easier city to navigate than some, I don't know, European city like Paris, for example.
Well,
but,
the weather-related stuff as well. It's
they have dust storms and rain there, but
yeah.
not as often as other locations. So.
Yeah, but it's just like the organization of the city. It's a lot more
It's
more,
it's less traffic, and but still, it's actually going to be a live if it launches a live service for a real city. It's impressive.
I'm curious if there's not an actual Google or Waymo person in there in these cars. I'm waiting for some 100% clarification on that. Hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com and facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. Before we get out of here, let's check the mailbag.
Let's do it. Timmy D wrote in. This is in reference to Monday's show, and Robert was hoping to get some AR tips. Timmy D says, just wanted to send over a couple of companies that are doing AR for industrial uses, like the clean room situation that Robert was talking about yesterday. RealWear has a headset that runs Android and can do most of what the emailer described. He's talking about Robert. Realwear.com. Also, Daqri, D-A-Q-R-I, has a platform and a headset, not as mature as RealWear, but still cool, that can do what was described. By the way, we had somebody else write in
Kome sent that too.
Yeah, to suggest Daqri as well. That's daqri.com/worksense. HoloLens is capable, of course, says Timmy D, but you need good devs or a third party to help you build your application.
And then we forwarded these emails that we've been getting to Robert, and Robert just wrote back right before the show. Thanks for all the awesome input. I may have just blown the department's budget for the next 2 fiscal years.
Hey, you're welcome.
Sent from my Commodore VIC-20 is what his signature line.
Thanks to everybody who not only writes in for suggestions, but everybody who also writes in to help out. And also thanks to Patrick Beja for being on the show today. Patrick, what has been going on in your world?
Well, listen. I'm going to address the listeners directly right now. If you're not listening to Le Rendezvous Tech, then really you should. What are you doing? Like, okay, it's in French. You might not speak French, but you might want to speak French. You might want to practice your French. Well, go listen to Le Rendezvous Tech. It's very easy. Just check it out on your podcast app or on FrenchSpin.fr.
For instance, I know that what I'm wearing is a chapeau because of, not because of Le Rendezvous Tech, but it could be. Because of Rendezvous Tech. So, hey, and speaking of hats, folks, we have Daily Tech News Show hats.
Hooray!
I'm wearing one right now in the video if you're watching the video, but you don't have to look at the video to see it. You can go to dailytechnewsshow.com/store. It's a real stitched hat. I'm ridiculously excited because A, I love baseball caps, and because it's like real stitching. It's not like a patch. It's not printed on there. It's like a real baseball hat. And it's throwback. It's retro gear. If you want to pretend like you're DTNS 2017, you can get this hat.
There you go.
For our throwback days, because it's got the old logo on it.
And it's real sharp looking, Tom Merritt.
I'll be honest, I don't care if anyone buys these or not. I just love having one. But if you did want to buy one and support the show, you can go to dailytechnewsshow.com/store. And of course, big thanks to everyone who supports the show directly on Patreon at patreon.com/DTNS.
We love to get your feedback, questions, comments, any ideas you might have. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're also live if you can join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 20:30 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back tomorrow with Scott Johnson. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
You know what, Diamond Club? I did enjoy it.
I'm glad you did. I did too.
Good.
And I'm sure Diamond Club is too. All right, guys, I'm going to run off because I'm really exhausted.
Okay, man.
Heavy day.
Good show, Patrick.
Good show.
Thank you very much.
Good to
It was
see you.
awesome. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay,
Good night.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night and good luck.
Just buy a hat, okay? I didn't mean to steal your Kome line. I didn't realize it was that you had actually written that in.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I kind of was like, where? I know I put that in there. Like, where is it?
I just remembered because I know
Yeah.
Kome. He's been around.
Yeah. No,
I just remembered that. And then I looked down. I was like, oh crap, she wrote that down.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm glad you did because I was I got a little lost where I was like, where did I put that little note?
Oh yeah.
I should have put it over to the right.
Cool.
Yeah. No. Good
No
stuff.
worries. No worries.
Got through a lot.
Yeah, that was we nailed 30 minutes exactly. Like
We did.
we were on it. That was crazy.
You guys moved. It was good.
Yeah, I don't feel like we shortchanged anything.
No, you actually did a really good job, just like the Google I/O presentation.
We were inspired by
We
you,
were.
Sundar.
Sundar.
And in that vein, I have two titles that I liked. One is Google Please. Get it? Google Please. And the other one is Google Duplex is a legend.
Wait, Google, please.
Get
Like
it?
pretty
Google.
please.
Right, because of the pretty please.
Yeah.
And then Google Duplex is a legend. Those are my two faves.
Google Duplex is a legend. It's pretty good. Those are both good.
There was something about the pretty please thing. Like, I didn't want to get like too like, I don't like that. But I was like, I don't know. Like, it sounds like a.
Sounds like brainwashing.
No, not brainwashing, but like a children's. Oh, I don't know. Some
Behavioral modification.
I don't know. Just like
Child oppression.
yeah, don't oppress my kid.
You know, I kind of do that anyway. I keep telling Ella, you say please, like if she wants something.
Well, that's and I know that's a big thing with parenting. There's something about the pretty please thing that I was like, I don't know.
It's a little too Little House on the Prairie kind of.
Yeah, I guess.
Too pushy.
Mother may I kind of thing.
It might be a little too. I think I understand what Sarah's getting at. It might be it might feel a little kind of heavy-handed and kind of a what was her name? Not who's the etiquette person in the newspaper column? Ann Landers?
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby.
Uh-huh.
Like kind of like, no, you know, kind of
a little old school. I
guess. A little old school, like saying pretty please, just like if you just said please.
That is, you're right. That's polite, but I just don't think that it's necessarily the
heavy-handed is a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
So Google Duplex is a legend, or Google
Google please.
The other one? Oh, Google please.
My only question is, should there be a comma?
Yes.
Google please.
Google please. What was Dear Abby's sister who also had the
Ann Landers?
Ann Landers. That's right.
Emily Post.
Yeah. I used to actually really like those columns.
I never really read them.
I remember one about like not liking your in-laws or something in one of those columns. I found it very interesting. It's basically just bite your lip.
BioCow says, I had the comma and then I took it out before I submitted it. Thought it was too much. It's probably right. I put it back in.
Google please.
Man, I'm sorry. I just love this hat.
It's a great hat.
You should have it surgically attached to your head.
No, I want to be able to take it on and off. You know?
You want to be like an old. You should take it off when you go inside, or when you're like tipping your hat.
This.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That means wrap up. Steel top story.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we should do. We should come up with signs.
Yeah, forget the whole spreadsheet. You know, red and orange thing.
Really well.
When I yank on my ear 3 times, it means wrap up.
Yeah.
When I, you know,
when you scratch your nose, either your nose is itchy or you want to move on to the next story.
Right.
I have a fly up my shirt.
Well, I look forward to the Warriors wrapping up their series tonight.
One way or another.
Well, just actually a one way, or else it continues.
Oh, I see. I didn't
it's not a one or
not like that.
Yeah, it'll just keep going.
Well, the Cavs won, right? So
they
Atlanta
did.
will be happy.
Yeah. Cavs advance.
It's Philly or Boston that
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Look at me. I know some NBA things.
You do.
Didn't know the Warriors.
Warriors are 3-1. So
3-1. Okay.
They either advance or they keep going.
W. Scott is one says, I will pre-order one of those hats. I love me some hats. Thank you. That's awesome. They are only going to be pre-orders for one more day. I think he's going to start getting them and start shipping them. I can't remember if he will order the amount Friday and then it'll take, they'll have to come in and then he'll start shipping them. But he's not waiting as long as he was planning because it was going to be May 17th before the shipping would happen. But I think he thinks it might ship out before that. So. Yeah, the 2 weeks pre-order period is probably going to be lower. It's probably going to be less than 2 weeks because we had so many people are interested in them, which is cool. I'm glad y'all like them too. Now we'll have to do the new logo, and then
it'll be like like the whole jersey craze, right?
Yeah.
Where we have like the throwback DTNS.
I was going to say, can we come up with a 20s era?
Right? Yeah. Remember when DTNS was in Brooklyn?
It was all it's DTNS all in one, like the STL or the LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, back when they were the Brooklyn Monthly Tech News Show, dispatched by telegraph.
Yeah.
I already know MSG isn't toxic. Why would you put that in there?
Who are you talking to?
It's well, I don't know if it's toxic.
People, some people have allergies to it.
Sensitivity to it. Yeah.
It's a natural recurring compound. You find it in mushrooms.
You know, I have to say,
I love mushrooms.
knowing that I love mushrooms too, my goodness. But I also, knowing that I've eaten MSG at places where it wasn't MSG free, I don't have a sensitivity to it. It doesn't do anything to me. But I know people who would be like, oh, I'd have a horrible headache after eating that.
Yeah, the only thing I can say it does in large amounts to me is it makes me very sweaty. Like
Where
I
is
just
this
start
coming
sweating.
from, by the way?
Oh no, it just popped up on my little thing on
His little brain.
a little Facebook post.
Aha!
It popped up in my little notification window in
You have
Windows 10.
turn them off. Turn them off. Actually, this is not a bad thing that you read.
I'm just saying, it's my little
Increase
window.
your
Yeah,
anxiety.
MSG has never bothered me, but anything that has too much sodium bothers me.
Well, so
And
that's the
kind of
very-
related.
I noticed. I didn't notice. I was I'm trying to remember what I was reading,
Facebook
but
notifications are worse for you than MSG.
that to get around some of the no MSG, some manufacturers just add a lot more salt to their products.
Yeah. I mean, I even though I have this place where I get my ramen regularly, and boy, do I love that ramen. But it's like, it's clearly way oversalted because the next morning I have like moon face,
Well,
where it's like, I
there's-
mean, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm
There's
oversalting
salt
my
ramen.
body. Yeah.
Right? If you
Well,
get
but it's-
soy or miso ramen, it may not be as bad.
Yeah, it's all pretty salty.
It's all pretty salty.
But it's delicious, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm willing to deal with
And
it.
you're always in control. You can stop when
That's
you want to.
right. Yeah.
ramen anytime.
I order when I want, and I don't when I don't. You know, you drink enough water, and it all kind of works itself out. But that's not the same as like having a sensitivity. That's just like, that's what happens when people eat too much salt.
Sarah comes on the show tomorrow, and her face is like 3 times the normal size. Did you have ramen last
You
night?
have ramen? No, I'm good.
I can quit anytime.
I don't have a problem. Yeah. It's true for certain foods. Some people have a hard time breaking away with, especially if it's like chocolate or anything that makes people somewhat happy if they're depressed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Addiction to sugar. That's a real thing for some people.
I cannot. I used to love sugar. Now I really have to
just
cut
to
back.
head off the emails, we're using addiction loosely here. We know.
We know.
Not actually addictive the way opium is. We're just
No.
saying. Habits.
A ritual that you don't necessarily want to give up.
Yeah.
That
exactly.
you become reliant
And
on.
has and leads to addictive like behaviors.
Yeah, like racehorse gambling or
Yes, if you start eating sugar, you'll be betting the horses.
buying Rolexes.
You want that IRA wiped out? Start with Hershey's.
Yeah.
I have a secret plan is to bet only on the horses that will win.
Aha.
Oh,
Yeah, that's my-
right. I never
Look at
thought
you.
about that.
That's my system.
I always, all kidding aside, there was a horse track close to where I grew up, and my dad and I would go every once in a while. And obviously, I was not able to legally bet, but I'd tell him what I thought the cool names were. But that was really it. It was like whatever's like 20-1 or has like the weirdest name, like that's the horse I want because it was fun, but it
Yeah.
wasn't a great way to win.
My
I want-
sister is very into horses, and every year we all kind of text each other during the Kentucky Derby, but she actually knows what's going on. She'll be
Yeah.
like, "Who are you rooting for?" And I'll be like, "Funny name," and she'll be like, "Okay."
Yeah, like why? Yeah, like you're not even trying.
She doesn't even bother.
You haven't done your
correcting me anymore.
research. Yeah.
That horse has the heaviest jockey of them all. It's not going to go anywhere.
Yes, but his name is Funny Money 32. No,
Right.
This is my ex-wife's third boat. I really hate those long two club.
Ex-wife?
Like there's names for racehorses that are like just not like they're not only ridiculous, they're just really long or hard to pronounce. Or it's like there was one that was like what was it? Something investment, It was just silly.
It's sort of like what people name their boats.
Yeah,
Sometimes you're
exactly.
like, okay, it probably has some significance, but like, it's a bit of a tongue twister.
I was for my boy Jack during the Kentucky Derby because my sister's dog is named Jack, which this year she's like, all right, fine, I'm going to be for my boy Jack too. Then I was for audio book because I like, or I'm sorry, audio. What was it? Audio book?
There's a horse named Audiobook.
Yeah. Oh, Audible. His name was Audible.
Oh, okay.
I was for Audible because I like audiobooks.
Right.
That was the one that got my sister, like, Mendelssohn is my second pick.
And in third place, Kindle ebook.
I think sometimes they come up with the names just to trip up the announcer.
These were not triple. The names are actually not that bad. That's kind of a stereotype because occasionally there's a really long name. But.
Super blown out.
There was speaking of last week tonight, which I was talking about in our Good Day Internet pre-show, they had a funny skit about all of the horses that didn't win the Kentucky Derby that had ridiculously long, silly names. I can't remember what any of the jokes were now, but it was very funny.
Third wife's alimony payment.
Something like that.
I didn't feel like there were any that were crazy long this year.
Coming around the bed and third wife's alimony payment. You just thinking of all the crazy things.
That's like a Looney Tunes thing. That's not a thing that actually happens, though, is it?
I remember I went to one. What's the one? Golden Gate Fields, the one on the peninsula,
in the East Bay.
No, the one that used to be in San Mateo before they
I think Golden Gate Fields is in like between.
Oh, Bay Meadows. I'm thinking Bay Meadows.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I went to one. I won $5.
So here's the order of finish from the Kentucky Derby: Justify, Good Magic, Audible, Instilled Regard, My Boy Jack, Bravazzo, Hofburg, Lone Sailor, Vino Rosso, Salamini, Firenze Fire, Bolt Doro, Flame Way, Enticed, Promises Fulfilled, Free Drop Billy, Noble Indy, Combatant, Magnum Moon, and Mendelssohn.
So his Promises Fulfilled. Is that two separate horses or one horse?
That was one horse, Promises Fulfilled. And he finished 15th, so he must not have promised much.
Maybe he fulfilled his promise of coming in 15th.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there were not any sometimes there's like one that's a little longer, but there wasn't really this year.
It kind of sucks. What do you do with the horse if it doesn't win after a while? You just sell
Put it out to stud.
Well, you don't want to stud a horse that doesn't win, right? I mean,
it might still have good bones. I don't know anything about horses.
Yeah, what are you asking us for? Do we look like we grew up on a horse ranch? I actually grew up near horses.
I'll ask my sister. She keeps horses.
There you go.
Hey, sis, what do you do with the horses that don't win?
I didn't mention it because I was all excited about the hats, but there's the meetup in Australia coming up for me. I will be in Australia, and that is May 15th in Sydney at 6 p.m. at Hart's Pub, and May 22nd in Melbourne at 6 p.m. at Bartronica. One or maybe both will have my sister, so you can ask her all the horse questions.
Ooh,
nice.
Sister
she probably
Merritt
would love that. She probably
or just like what was Little Tom like?
Oh yeah, she'll
tell us everything.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So on that note, we'll see you all tomorrow with Scott Johnson.
All righty. Goodbye, video.